I saw through my night vision scope. I'm a hunter. I like to hunt wild boar specifically. Though I have been deer hunting and I have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving, I mostly hunt boar. For those of you who don't know, boar are a big problem in the United States. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more pigs. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife make it legal to hunt them with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. I've been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope that costs literally twice as much as the rifle I was mounting it on was worth it, but I did it. I took it to the range, sighted it in. There was an area that was peppered with boar activity that I knew would be perfect for a night hunt. It was easily accessible with my truck, with easy-to-find spots that I could set up that overlooked a large, easy-to-navigate clearing. The night started uneventful, mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season, and like I mentioned earlier, my current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to another spot I'd seen days earlier that probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do and a new angle to look around with my scope. After an hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me. The spot doesn't have much animal activity at all. No rabbit or owls. The deer that I had seen were hundreds of yards from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night, but lively in the day? I'd set up around 10 p.m. and it was 2 a.m. when I started to think about packing up, maybe setting up a target before I left and taking some practice shots. I heard a crunch come from the direction I came from before. I panned my scope over and saw a silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. It's important to note that my scope isn't exactly night vision, it's a thermal scope, kind of like black and white version of what you see in the Predator movies. I adjusted my range and zoomed in a little. I remember jolting a little when I saw that it wasn't really a bear, it was a man. Because he was so low and hunched over, I thought I was looking at a young bear. Is that a game warden? It couldn't be. I was 30 miles away from anything and on public lands. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights and noticed that he was naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something. Twitchy and grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I had been leaning against earlier? The thought terrified me. Could he smell me? Then he did something that I still have nightmares about today. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl.
Stop. Oh my gosh. No.
I heard it, a voice coming from that direction, a very compelling female voice saying, "Help, I'm lost." There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights were trained at the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I had been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy that had gone crazy out there? Why was his voice so feminine? "Help! Please! I can't walk!" The voice called out. That's when I called BS. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him, he was traversing the land with ease for a naked man. So good that I mistook him for a bear. This is a effing trap. This guy is trying to lure me with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily, the lack of activity before had caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think that I may have left a hat and a sitting pad, but I didn't give a shit about that. I took my eyes off him for a moment to get my pack on. I buckled my chest strap, scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the same position, but his face was staring in my direction, and I swear I saw a smile. The thermal scope had an effect that made animals...
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
The thermal scope has an effect that makes animals' eyes appear white.
Oh, I was so focused on listening.
How the hell had he heard me get up and put my gear on? He must have easily been 150 yards away. F off! I screamed in that direction.
I wouldn't have said nothing.
Yeah, I just ran.
I would have just shot.
He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny he was. Easily 6 feet tall and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively set around, sailing above his head in the tree line. He was freaky as hell, but he hadn't really threatened me, and what would I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot somebody. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched on all fours. The next one will F you up. Go away. He stayed on all fours, and this time I had my sights trained on the center of him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop my trembling, and I knew that my voice had cracked a little on the last warning. I was terrified. The standoff probably only lasted a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever.
A minute or two is forever. That's crazy.
In an instant, he bolted left towards the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk. I could barely keep him in my scope. He was moving so fast. He disappeared in the brush, and I set another bullet sailing high in his direction. I racked another round and tried to pocket that mag and swap for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far away from my truck, and I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived at my truck breathless. I tossed my gear in the cab, but kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time, I told the story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged crackhead living off the land like some kind of caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night and never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story at a camping trip that my nephew told me about wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers, yeah.
My story scared the piss out of him because the spot we were on camping was technically the same forest I'd seen the bastard, just 50 miles east of it. He was so spooked, his mom, my cousin, had to take him home. She was really pissed. I've gone down that rabbit hole. One of these scary stories. I'm not saying what I saw definitely was a wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet that night. Or maybe it was just a tweaker being Donnie Thornberry in the middle of the night. Either way, I thought I'd share.
My husband, 28 male, and I, 29 female, moved into a new house in March of 2020. Already a crazy time in the world. And I am not sure if it was the negative energy of the house, the world, or what, but we had some crazy things happen within those first few months. We brought both of our cats over to the house, and they refused to go down into the basement. One of our cats would just sit at the top of the stairs and hiss down there constantly. I couldn't get him to move or anything. It's like he was trying to warn us about something. My other cat would quickly run up the stairs, also, almost like he was running from something. My husband said it was just them getting settled in a new house. Every time I walked downstairs, I felt like someone was watching me.
Oh, no.
I would hear footsteps and lights would turn off, but I chalked it up to a new house and learned how it sounds and works. However, I woke up one morning to find all of my cat's toys / stuffed animals lined up across the doorway of our spare bedroom.
No.
I have heard of demonic presences doing similar things, so this freaked me the fuck out. Again, my husband didn't think anything of it.
What? I would be furious if my husband was like, yeah? Like, what? If these toys were lined up and he just was like, okay, and?
He said it was probably just the cats that did that.
Okay. Idiot. Sorry.
But they never move their toys in a straight line.
Yeah, what?
Or really away from the living room.
A straight line? I'd slap my husband. I'd be pissed. I'd be mad at myself that I married this man. I know I'm focused on the wrong thing right now, but can't help it.
It's giving
that's why they always die first in scary movies.
I know. It's giving the TikTok energy of this little boy looking at his mom and be like, why'd you marry him?
Literally the ick I would get from my own husband telling me I think the cats just decided to line up their toys in a straight line in front of a bedroom.
Super smart
that we
cats.
don't go into.
Yeah, just genius cats.
I hate you.
I had nightmares occasionally before moving, but they increased drastically when we moved. I also had a significant amount of sleep paralysis where I kept waking up and walking downstairs to the basement.
That's not sleep paralysis.
Ma'am, that's a fucking sleepwalk.
You're sleepwalking.
Where your fucking demon is calling you downstairs.
Stop. Oh my God.
That's not sleep paralysis. You don't move.
I know. That's the definition of paralysis is you cannot move. So you don't just get up and take a midnight stroll.
It gets worse.
Ah!
It finally got to be too much when I dreamed that I was locked in the basement with a killer, but I couldn't see his face, and there was blood everywhere, like overflowing, similar to that scene in The Shining. I saged the shit out of the basement and lit some good chalker candles. Found them on Amazon, LOL. It seemed to get less crazy after that, and my nightmares mostly went away. I looked up if someone had died in the house, but couldn't find anything online. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the previous owners of the house had all these documents about the lot from back to the 1800s. Our house was, as you may have guessed, a former Native American settlement and was rebuilt into a home in the 50s, but had a historical records of different houses and properties back hundreds of years. Nope, I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either.
We also did find one record saying an elderly woman had died there in like 1920, but couldn't find anything else. My husband is still skeptical of all of it, and while I didn't see anything, I could feel the energy shift in the house. I have been trying to dig in more, but can't really find anything else about the house. I still sage it frequently just in case. And if anyone else is wondering if this is real, I have pictures of both my cats freaking, the toys lined up, and the house records.
But at the same
What we believe was our daughter's paranormal moment as a toddler. From the time our daughter was just about a year to just over 2 years old, we periodically got woken up to the sounds of her giggling, to flat out cackling and squealing in excitement. When either of us would get up to see what the fuss was about, she'd be standing or sitting at any of the 3 sides of her crib looking up. One day I was holding her and walking from each framed photo of family members. I'd point to those in the pics and say, "Who is that?" I pointed to her mom, myself, my mom, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my brother, his wife. Each time, she'd say her word for that person. There was a collage with a number of people, memories of the past my wife and I made and framed. There were people and friends who were no longer with us / passed on, including my father, who'd passed away a decade before our daughter was born. I started pointing at people, and if she didn't know them, she'd look at me real fast and hold the palms of her hands up like, I don't know. So I'd point to the person again and say their names. She'd do her best to repeat it. In the collage was a pic of my late father and I. I pointed to me. She said, Dada. I pointed to my father, and she got all excited. She started bending her knees in my arms, raising up and down, giggling with the biggest smile. She raised her arms up in the air and looked at the ceiling and said loudly, Papa, 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 Papa. She kept giggling and saying Papa. I had chills, and my wife was looking at us with wide eyes. I started to tear up. For one, no one had ever shown her a photo of my father. We didn't have one hanging up in the rooms where she frequented. No reason. We just didn't have very many big photos of him. For two, she'd never said the word before. Not ever. Lastly, my brother lives halfway across the country, and at that time, he had only seen my daughter once. He has one daughter, but she was in college when we visited him, so she'd never met our daughter. But my niece spent a lot of time of her early life around my late father before my brother relocated. Papa was what my niece called my father, and he loved being called Papa. Her reaction had my wife and I thinking, and admittedly hoping that maybe, just maybe, all those times we had woken up to our daughter giggling. Why am I going to cry?
I know.
Bug! Giggling, laughing, and squealing in delight. It was my late father paying her a visit.
100%
It was just so cute.
It was 100% him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What my son's toy says after the batteries die. I don't know what I was thinking when I bought the plush monkey that could talk and gave it to my 6-year-old, other than I wanted the boy to cause a ruckus in my house. He pushed the button on the back so many times that I memorized the 4 factory phrases. Ooh, ah, ah, gimme a banana, a Wilhelm-esque scream, and a Tarzan yell. I thanked God when the batteries finally died on the goddamn thing. The most amazing thing was that my son did not come crying to me to replace the batteries, seeming content to just drop it and walk away. When I stooped to pick the plush animal to put back into the toy bucket, the tinny speaker in the hard plastic box warbled, "Do you remember when I used to be your son?" I immediately dropped the monkey on the floor. I poked it with my foot once before picking it back up. I pushed the button on the back. Nothing. Still, I was sure I heard it say those words. I called my son over to me and asked him if he ever heard the monkey say anything weird. That's when the boy's face lit up with fear and excitement, as if I had uncovered something he had been wanting to tell me. My son took the monkey into the laundry room and turned on the dryer, putting the monkey on top so he can't hear us. He wouldn't say a word until he lead me outside. I had never seen him like this before. When we were standing out in the backyard, the boy said, "Sometimes it says very bad things to me. It says it wants to hurt us, Daddy. I was too scared to talk to you, not when it could hear us. You got to break it. You got to go in there and smash it. I wanted my son to learn patience and logic at young age, and that meant not destroying an inanimate object because of fear. I explained that we both heard a voice that was someone at the factory playing a prank, and we might need it for evidence. But the fear in the kid's eyes and words made it clear this wasn't a matter for the courts. When we opened the door to the laundry room, the monkey had moved from the top of the dryer to the bottom of the door. My son shrieked, even as I tried explained that it just fell off the dryer because it was shaking. That's when the monkey eked out a long, drawn-out moaning cry like nothing we heard before. My son shouted for me to stop it, and the lower part of my brain kicked in. I brought my booted foot down on the plastic box inside the monkey, crushing it against the laundry room's concrete floor. Something reddish-black, not blood, not oil, but something pungently organic and toxic leaked out from the seams of the plush monkey. "You should have listened to your son. Now you are alone," said the boy behind me. I swear, I turned to see something large and old, like the last orange ember of a once great fire sparking just behind my son's innocent eyes. The boy turned and bolted towards the front door, running faster than I ever could. The thing that hid inside the monkey piloted my son like a champion, rocketing him into the darkness where the street lamps couldn't reach, cackling the kind of laugh that only comes from the novel joy of having fresh lungs and new legs again. I never saw my son again, but on some nights, I can still hear that laugh.